What's going on, Money Multipliers? Welcome back to another episode. So today I had the pleasure to interview Mr. Stephen Nagy. Stephen is a Florida boy with me down here, and he just has my heart. I mean, honestly, I look at him as almost like my older brother. So Stephen is a huge part of the organization over here at the Money Multiplier. He runs a lot of Chris Nagel's webinars with him, sometimes even without him. And just Stephen is just a wealth of knowledge, has a lot of experience when it comes to money in the financial world. He's a very big family man. He's got his wife, Courtney, and his son, Bryce, and just a great, phenomenal gentleman. And his topics that I just find very valuable is, Steven's never having a bad day. I mean, honestly, he is always showing up with a big smile on his face, and no matter what life throws at him, he's always making the time for himself and his family. And those are things that I am still currently working on in my life. And I think we can take a lot of the knowledge and energy away from Steven to live a more fulfilled, productive life for ourselves. So I'm excited for this interview. Thank you, y'all, for being here. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Every single week, I get a new episode out. Hit the like button down below. Leave a comment. Ask me questions. Let me know if there's other topics that you want me to get into. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, Money Multipliers. Welcome back to another episode of the Money Multiplier podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Kessler, and we ask ourselves, do our dollars make sense? So today is election day. I know it's a Tuesday, and that's when my episodes get published. And I don't know, I'll just tell you, just me, I slept like a freaking baby last night, just knowing that my money's protected inside of my policies. But I understand it could be a big day when it comes to the markets and what we're going to see our country go into in these next 4 years. So I don't know, at the end of the day, I just always think about I can control what I can control. And if I can control when it comes to my money, my mindset, the people I surround myself with, I'm going to be picky and choosy of where I spend my time and my energy at. So I wanted to bring on Mr. Stephen Nagy here today because Stephen, I honestly call him my brother from another mother. Some days we get along so well, and some days I just want to come over there and smack him across the face. So what's going on, Mr. Stephen? How are you doing?
Hey, Hannah, I'm excited to be here. I just love your show, love the podcast, love everything, obviously, that we do with the Money Multiplier and controlling money. So haven't had an opportunity to get on with you yet. So super excited to chat today and talk a little bit about what's going on. And, we'll get into a little bit about the politics, although I got to tell you, I am so very happy that it's over. Whatever happens today, whatever the results are, whoever is the next president of the United States, at least we know what path is forward, or at least hopefully we have the election results, but at least we'll know the path forward. We can put it all behind us because it has been a hectic election season leading up to all this. So I'm happy to put it behind us, but more excited to be on the show today and get into all this stuff with you.
Yeah. And Stephen, let me just ask you this, because I've been asking a lot of my elders, like I even asked my grandpa who's age 89. I mean, we have never seen it like this, an election period and campaign like this before. Can you say the same thing?
Okay, so I know you think I'm your brother from another mother, but I'm only 41 years old, Hannah. I'm not an elder. Come on, I'm an
Not elder, more experienced than myself.
Very good, very good. But yeah, I mean, historically speaking, after an election like this, there's usually always major market moves, and usually it's on the downside. And if we look at what's led up to this election since COVID happened, what led up really since 2010 after the last financial, recession and kind of collapse that we had. And when you look at everything that the Fed has done with everything that the federal government is doing, everything's leading towards some economic downside coming up. And, what the severity of that is, is it a crash? Is it a depression? Is it a recession? Is it something we quickly bounce out of? That's really the $1 million question. But every piece of data that we've studied, and looking at history leads to there will be some kind of economic downturn coming up here soon. So that's, I think, what the importance at the end of the day of what this discussion is today and what we do here at the Money Multiplier to make sure that you do understand what's happening so you can position yourself to not lose all of your money, to probably even take advantage of it. So we get into a little of that today too.
Yeah. And I guess I just want to say like a big PSA for folks like in the Gen Z generation, like myself, 2008, I was 8 years old. I was still a child. There's even like memes floating around like on my Facebook that says, oh man, back in 2008, I was only 8 years old, but I should have bought a piece of property. I would have been way farther ahead nowadays. So my biggest advice for the people just in my generation is I would say remain liquid right now. I would also move some money out of those risky markets. That's just my humble opinion as we go into this next cycle of this downturn. Again, this is just my opinion, listening to Mr. Stephen, Chris Noggle, and other financial gurus that are out there, because actually Stephen and Chris, they run a weekly show, 9:30 a.m. Every Wednesday called What the F Happened. It's just a big markets update. So you can go and follow that show if you go to Chris Noggle's YouTube or Facebook pages. They'll be live over there. So, Stephen, let me ask you this then. What are you currently doing? I know you're a big advocate of the gold, the silver, and diversifying your portfolio. Can you speak a little bit on that, to just in these times specifically, too, how important it is to be diversified?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on with that. And, we used to ask people like, how many of you, I used to, taking a real quick step back. So I used to do a lot of traveling, and we do financial education in big group settings in front of 100, 200 people, sometimes in smaller or consulting strategy sessions. But we would always ask people, like, how many of you, and I'll ask you all right now, how many of you have ever had $1 million idea? Meaning, you're in the shower, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of good ideas in the shower for some reason, or out on a jog or working out, something like that. When the juices are flowing, you get these ideas and, oh man, this would be such a cool idea. And then a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, what happens? You see that thing out there, that product, that idea that you had is out there, and you see somebody else making millions of dollars off it. You're like, oh man, what if, that could have been me? Like, have you ever had a thought like that? And most people have these ideas. And at the end of the day, it boils down to, we all have great ideas, but it boils down to the people that actually take action on those ideas are the ones that ultimately become successful. But it all starts with having the right mindset, having the right attitude, and having the right education. And so when it comes to, this podcast, for instance, what Chris and I do with What the F Happened and Wealth Webinar and the other 6 webinars we do every single week, it's all education based, because we truly believe that if you can have the right education, the right mindset, the right foundation, the success is unlimited. The possibilities are endless, and you can do anything you want in life. And so when we look at where are we today, election day, things are going to happen. So let's understand, like you said, Hannah, to your point, where is our money? Now, I think people like Warren Buffett that have proven themselves over decades and decades and decades of being smart. I'll follow people like that. And Warren Buffett, what's he doing right now? Well, he's selling, he's cashing out, he's stockpiling cash right now. So that's also something that I think is a good idea. It's something that I've been doing over the last couple of years. So for example, cashing out of long-term hold real estate properties that we bought back in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, when the markets were at the bottom. Well, what's gone on over the last decade? Well, everyone knows, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, the real estate market has boomed. So in real estate, in stocks, in general markets, history shows we're always, always, always going to have ups and downs, just the way the world operates, the way the economy works. And so if we know that the markets were down back then and now we're up right now, we're never going to time the markets perfectly, but is it a good time to maybe start getting out? Well, Warren Buffett's doing so. We're doing so. So maybe it's a good idea for you to start thinking about that a little bit as well. And so if we can cash out now, here's the other caveat with all this is once we cash out of these deals, we don't necessarily just want our money sitting either, like in a checking account, because as we all know, our money's not growing. It's just sitting. Money that's not in motion is basically losing money to things like inflation. And inflation's been a hot topic over the last few years, right, Anna? I mean, we've seen 25% overall inflation over the last 3, 4 years is very, very high. So that all that simply means is that any money you have sitting that's not in motion, it's actually losing. You've actually lost 25% of your money over the last 3 or 4 years just by it sitting. So we don't necessarily just want the money sitting either. So what can we do with our money to keep it in motion, but do it in maybe safer things, short-term investments, places that we can put our money that's maybe guaranteed. And you mentioned at the start of this, you slept beautifully last night because you know that you're in complete control of your money, that your money's guaranteed to grow when it is sitting, no matter what goes on with the overall economy and everything else. And so that's what I'd love to get into a little bit more today too, is how can other people start doing that?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And and we preach it all day long, right, Monroe? Where we hold our money is inside of the whole life policies because it's guaranteed, it's protected, and it's not dictated on those external factors that are out there. So a whole life. And hey, y'all, if you have not seen our presentation on the infinite banking concept, just go to our website, themoneymultiplier.com, and underneath the resources tab, you'll find the presentation on there. And that's where I would start. So, Stephen, let me ask you this. When did you start your infinite banking journey?
Yeah, great question. And it goes right into watching that 90-minute video because, everyone has a different background, a different past, different experiences in life. And so, if you're somebody that's maybe just followed the traditional investing, concept your entire life, put your money in a 401k, work with a financial advisor, be safe, things like that, when you see the 90-minute presentation that we call it, how the infinite banking concept really works, and we start training you on it, you're going to either go one of two ways. You're either going to really open your mind and be like, wow, this is amazing, or you're going to push back and say, well, if it's really that good, why have I never heard about it before? Yep. It's just, those are typically the two paths. So we can dive into that a little bit more in a moment, Hannah. But at the end of the day, for me, I came, maybe we can get into my real far past in a little while. But ultimately starting, coming out of college, I was a personal financial advisor. So fully licensed Series 7, Series 66, Florida 215 variable annuity, and all the rest of it. And so I worked with the company, American Express Financial Advisors, which when I joined them was just in the transition of becoming Ameriprise Financial, which is still one of the largest financial planning firms in the country today. And Ameriprise Financial taught me that traditional way of investing, a traditional financial planner role. And so I saw that side of the fence. And it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me in life at that point, because I really started to understand that, hey, most people that follow this path are not going to actually be able to retire the way and the lifestyle that they want to. Because as a financial advisor, we would talk to people about their goals. We would say, what does retirement look like for you? What is your dreams? When do you want to retire? And everybody's different. Some people are like, just give me a house on the lake so I can fish all day. Some people want to say, hey, I want multiple houses. I can travel in my private jet and I want to be able to go on European vacations and go to Australia twice a year, whatever. Everybody's different, but whatever that is, what does that look like? Okay. And then we got to build it backwards. All right. So here's where you are today. This is where you want to get to. How are we going to get you there? And 9.9 times out of 10, the conversation will be, okay, this is where you are. Well, this is where you are today. We're going to have to make a lot of changes to allow you to achieve those goals. You're either going to have to push back retirement, you're going to have to drastically scale it down, or you're going to have to drastically change your lifestyle today, because if you want to be able to get there in retirement, you're not going to be able to spend the money you're spending today. You're not going to be able to go on the vacation with your family today because we're going to need that money for the future. And so I started to realize traditional investing is a lot of give and take, and not necessarily in a good way. And most people end up having to go back to work. Especially, remember, this was back in 2005, 2006, 2007, leading up to the financial collapse. And then once I saw what actually happened to these people in 2008, I was like, whoa, this is horrible, because people that were planned to retire in 2008, all of a sudden what happened? They're probably still working today if they didn't do anything different. And so I saw that side of the fence. And then I was very, very lucky at the time to be in the right place at the right time. So I lived in Cape Coral, Florida. This was back in 2005, 6, 7, 8. And so at the time, there was a financial education company that taught alternative investing, that taught real estate investing. So my cousin that I lived with at the time, who to this day is still my business partner, but my cousin that I lived with at the time, we bought a house together back then. He had just gotten out of college. he didn't know what he wanted to be. I went the financial advisor path. He was like, I don't know. So I'm going to go travel and start learning real estate investing because one of his good friends from high school, his dad owned this big, huge financial education company. So long story short, he started learning about real estate investing. He started learning about entrepreneurship. He started learning about how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to make money working for yourself, the whole mindset of Robert Kiyosaki, for example. And have you ever read like Robert Kiyosaki? I know it was a little bit before you got into this whole financial world, but did you ever go back and read like Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant? Have you read those books?
Yes. Not cash flow quadrant, but rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah, I mean, so Robert Kiyosaki to me is like kind of like the old school, like because this he was real big when I was getting into this field. So I absolutely love everything that he talks about, that he teaches. The cash flow quadrant with the four quadrants. I'm actually gonna teach
Yep.
that in Charlotte. 2 days from now, when this thing comes out, we'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina at Private Money Club's Money Tank event. But the difference in being an employee, being self-employed, having a business, having employees, having investor income and the rest of it. So the four quadrants. And so,
Or,
I was
or, or to sum it up, because actually Pops and I actually talk about that a lot. It's the man at work versus the money at work versus the business at work and those different quadrants. It's very important, and everyone should be there in your Charlotte event.
absolutely, absolutely. And so he started traveling doing this. And then, I was watching what he was doing. I started getting involved with him on some of the real estate deals that he was doing. And I was like, man, I was like, I'm over here telling these people to do this financial route that just doesn't seem to work. And then I was looking at what he was doing with real estate and with business, and I was like, I kind of really like that path better. Like, what if I could go out there instead of teaching people financial traditional education? What if I could go out there and start doing it myself and then sharing my experience in alternative investing and real estate investing and controlling your money and building a business? And it wasn't easy to do because if you've ever had to take the testing for a Series 7 and Series 6 and the financial licenses, it's not easy. They compare it to the equivalency of like taking the bar as an attorney, which isn't easy to do. And if you've ever done it, you know this. So it wasn't an easy decision for me to make, to be like, listen, I spent years to get to where I am today, but am I going to let that all go to do my next thing? I decided to do it. I decided to take the risk and take the next path. And sometimes in life, you have to make those decisions. Now, this was back in 2008. Has it always been riches and glory and success ever since then? Absolutely not. There's been several times I've had to go back and get a regular job and do what you have to do to survive in life. But I've always had the one thing on my side, which is my mindset, which is my drive to be better, to do better, to have more, to want to do something outside of the traditional box. And so even though I've had to do what I've had to do over the years to support myself and my family and things of that nature, I've always had the end goal of this is where I want to be and working towards that. And so I just wanted to bring that up because it's okay if you've gotten into real estate, for example, in the past and failed, or you started a business in the past and failed at it, it's okay. But if you can keep that mindset, nobody can ever take that away from you. Your education, what you've learned. And that's why when you hear people like, I think it was Grant Cardone or something he was talking about where, hey, I think he did this on a show where he's like, you could put me in a town with no money, no connections, and I could go out there and make $1 million in 30 days. You see TV shows and people do, and why is that? It's because they have the mental awareness, they have the education. You can't take that away. And so that's the importance of all this is no matter what your journey looks like, just believe in yourself, surround yourself with the right people. And we'll talk about that, Hannah, why the importance of masterminds. I mean, we just got back from Nashville, Tennessee, and just how powerful that kind of thing is moving forward. So long story short, started in the financial industry, switched over to start learning about entrepreneurship, real estate investing, started teaching that, started learning sales, started learning public speaking, started learning how to network and talk to people and communication and all the skills that really create a successful investor and entrepreneur. And, ultimately that's, led me to meeting Chris Noggle, which led me to meeting you guys, which led me to learning about infinite banking. So the infinite banking journey, and that's your original question, right? How to get into infinite banking and what am I using it for?
That's it, sir.
So
Yeah,
not
yeah.
talking too much
No,
there,
no,
Hannah.
no, no, and it's good because here's what I hear. That this is what one thing that my father has always taught me, and I have been very, very blessed to have a mentor there since being a young girl, and it is my dad that has taught me all of this. But he's always said, mindset, mentors, systems, and you got to get the mind right. You got to have those mentors. mentors, follow their lead, live in the lifestyle that you want to live, learn from their mistakes, and then have the systems in place to do all of this and process it. And so even like when it comes to policies too, like when folks are getting into the infinite banking concept, they kind of go down this rabbit hole on YouTube. I have a whole episode where I titled it Policy PTSD, because I will be talking with folks and they said, well, hey, I had something like this, but it was an IUL and I lost my ass in it, pardon my French, right? And so even if you have failed, you still have that mindset that you can get yourself back up to doing it again. Because actually, Grant's wife, Elena, there was one like Instagram post that I saw where she was like, hey, if Grant and I lost everything today, yeah, that would effing suck, but I know how to get it all back and I know how to do it 2 to 3 times quicker because I got all the experience and the mindset now here. So since you cultivated that good mindset, now you have the mentors that you're following too. I assume that maybe you had business coaches in the past. You have mentors like Chris Noggle teaching you about IBC. Now comes a part of the systems. Okay, now how do I practically do this?
Yeah, 100%. And the importance of having coaches and mentors and having them assist you along the journey. It can, a lot of the stuff that we do is, even flipping houses, it's not rocket science at the end of the day. Anybody can go out there and do that. But the question becomes going out there and doing that and making a great profit or barely breaking even. The difference is going out there and getting it done in 2 months versus 2 years. And that's where the importance of the education, mentors, and coaching really comes into play. And so, the reason I kind of wanted to take a step back and talk about my journey on the traditional side of financial investing and kind of getting into real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and the rest of it is because, I had never heard about infinite banking up until 2019. And because of my experience in the financial education industry and a lot of the connections that I've had over the years and people that I know and different courses I've been through and mentorships I've purchased and events I've attended over the last 15 years, I thought I literally knew everything about this industry. And so when I heard about infinite banking, I honestly thought it was a scam in the way that not it's a scam, but that it's one of those things that's like just kind of like I don't know how to say it. Like
I thought too good to be true.
yeah, like okay, like a gimmick. Okay, this is a way to get people in, but then what are we really doing with these people? Like, are we selling them $50,000 packages? Are we, what are we doing with all these people who are getting in through this IBC journey type thing, right? And so I really blew it off for months. I'm like, Chris and I, when we first met in 2019, the reason we met was because we were introduced so we could build a company together, going out and doing financial education, real estate investment courses all across the country. And so my part of that company was the real estate investment side and the real estate investment coaching side and the rest of it. And then Chris was going to really focus on the infinite banking side. And we were bringing those both together to go around and teach people how they work together. And so I was like, okay, Chris, I'm going to focus. I was like, whatever this infinite stuff you're doing, like, cool, it's attracting people. I literally thought it was just a marketing gimmick for months and months. And I saw Chris deliver the presentation a couple of times, and this was at the beginning when Chris wasn't exactly great yet. And so I was like, whatever, But finally, 2020 came and COVID came. And it's actually because of COVID. And I was like, it gave me the time to sit down and really dig into it. Because I'm the kind of person, like, I had to really dig into something to understand it and really buy into it. And so 2020 COVID came, it gave me the time to sit down and say, okay, what is this infinite banking thing? Like, I've been seeing it now for the last 6 months. People are raving about it. They love it. We're not charging people for anything. Like, how does that work? Like, so I was like, what is this? So I dug in, and the more I learned, the more I watched the stuff that Brent was putting out at that time. Chris started to talk more about it. I started to read all the books, becoming your own banker and how privatized banking really works. And if I turn my camera around and show you my bookshelf with dozens and dozens of books on this stuff. And so I started diving into it. I was like, holy shit, like, how did I never know about this before? Like, how was I never taught this or even introduced to it? And then I started seeing the little cracks. The reason why is because everybody talks about it a little bit differently. Because unbeknownst to me, Robert Kiyosaki talks about it in his book, Second Chance.
Yep.
Tony Robbins, who I love, I've been reading Tony Robbins stuff for years and years and years. Tony Robbins talks about it in his book, Money Master the Game. So they
Yep.
do talk
5.5.
about just how it just went over my head. So I was like, holy shit. So all these people do know about infinite banking and becoming your own banker. It's just something for some reason it never connected with me. So once I actually saw what it does, I was like, all right, well, let's get some policies started. So I started my first policy. I used my first policy to put a big dump in it, immediately took a loan out, and I paid off some debt that I had incurred when COVID hit. Um, which was fine. So I used it for debt. I started paying myself back. And then now to this day, now I have four policies. So I know I'm behind you guys still, but I have four good policies, strong policies, and we're adding a fifth in policy right now, possibly sixth policy beginning of next year. And now what I'm doing with the policies is I'm using them to invest and make purchases, to tell you the truth. So I just used one of my policies to buy a truck that I'm now recapturing the money for. The rest of my policies, the money's out in private money loans. Right now, I'm focusing on the businesses that we have. So I'm not doing any active real estate at the time, but I am keeping the money in motion through private money lending, which we can dive into if you want a little bit about that. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were talking about, stockpiling the cash. So the way I look at these policies is a way to stockpile cash where I still have growth, even if I'm not using the money for something. But if I do find an incredible opportunity in a private money deal that's short term that I know I can get into, get my money right back out of, then I'll do that because I'm making much better returns when I have the money compounding in the policy and I'm keeping that money through these short term private money loans. So for me, that's kind of like my idea of stockpiling cash, keeping the money going, but it's just a very conservative stuff because I'm not doing active real estate now. But guess what I'm going to do when the market turns?
You're going to buy.
I'm going to start buying again. So we're going to start buying a lot of properties again. And I'm hoping we're going to be able to have another cycle where we buy low, like we did in 2010, 11, and 12, ride that wave for a decade, sell everything, and do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And Stephen, one thing I just wanted to point out too, because this is something we actually just talked about in the Nashville Mastermind, is that, yeah, we can talk all day long about infinite banking, but what does it actually mean to be a banker, an infinite banker? And you use the word recapture. And I know Brent uses that term a lot too, because yeah, I'm recapturing the money back to myself instead of it going out to another bank or another financial institution. But you're being disciplined with it. Once a debt gets paid off, okay, now I no longer have to send Amex that monthly payment. I'm not going to treat this money like it's just free money now that I can go and spend at my favorite Greek restaurant. I'm going to move that money, start paying myself back into the policy. And same thing with the truck, right? I'm, instead of me going out and getting a bank loan, I'm taking the money from the policy, going to go buy the truck, and then now play honest banker with myself, pay myself back, charge myself interest. Because I mean, I'll just tell you, this past weekend I was at an event called the Money Show, and the Money Show is a big event. It's more catered towards people who like the markets, like to stock trade and do their options trading, right? And so it was kind of fun being there because I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb compared to all these people in the markets in the crypto world. But I really got honed in on, why do we use the policy to go buy our investments? No, I don't want you to change anything that you're already doing. All we're going to do first is I'm just going to run my money through the policy and then go make my investment or pay my taxes, whatever it is that I'm doing. And people would ask me, well, okay, Hannah, you drew out this T chart here of the differences between a bank and your mutually owned insurance companies and the whole life policy. Well, what is the biggest risk? What is the risk when I do all of this? And this is kind of me going back to, well, hey, my systems, why I warehouse the money in there is that there's no risk factor to this besides you and how you use the system. The only one who can screw this stuff up is you if you don't pay your premiums. Maybe you don't pay back at least the loan interest on your policy. But those are all things that you can control, and you need to be disciplined with this stuff. It can't just be like a lazy thing, like you just set it to the side and forget about it, like we kind of can do in our private lending deals, right? This is us actively being our own bankers. So I know I'm doing a lot of that too right now, just with the lending. Personally, for me, why I like a lending so much is it doesn't take a lot of my time, and people do know about the private money club, and people should join that community over there. But it is important. We just had our big Nashville event happen, and Stephen, you're going to be coming out too next year, 2025, when we have it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Never miss that.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing what city I want to go to next, but just FYI, y'all, October 2025 is when it will happen. I don't know the exact weekend yet or the exact location, but I will keep you posted. And actually, too, we got some other big events coming out, like in Tampa. Larry Steinhaus and I, March 1st and 2nd of 2025. That event will be happening where we're going to get deep into financial literacy, the art of communication, because that is big things too. How am I communicating myself when I'm talking with other investors? Or maybe I do want to go down get a bank loan. How am I communicating that? Or maybe I need to have difficult conversations with my children or my boss. How am I communicating my body language? So a lot of good material that just is even outside of the financial education too that we got going on over here. So, Stephen, I know today's election day. All right. And I appreciate you for coming on today's episode when it's this big day here in 2024. But what are you doing the rest of this year? So I know we're right here in November. We got December coming up. Are you staying home for the holidays, or what are you and Courtney and the family up to?
Yeah, good question. It's we're rolling down to the end of the year here. It's just amazing how quickly time flies, isn't it? And it's you look back on where we started this year, where we are today, look back on last year, it's just like so much changes so quickly, not only in business, but just in our everyday lives. Just everything. It makes you realize. And one of the things that's always kept me focused in life is just understanding that we do have one life to live. Like there's no dress rehearsals in life. And so the good, the bad, the ugly, you just take every bit of it and internalize it and try and become a better person on the back end of it. And so, I try and one of the more difficult parts about everything that we do is finding that balance. How do we devote so much time to the businesses, to traveling, to family, and having my son's just turned 9 years old, um, recently a few weeks ago, and I just remember when he was a little baby, and so now he's like 9 years old, and he's becoming like a actual kid, and he's away from being a teenager, and he's gonna be driving, and he's gonna be going off to college, and it's just like, so for me, it's very important that I'm with him as much as possible. I coach his baseball teams. I'm very active with his playing flag football right now. We do try and go on, several trips a year so he can experience life and what's out there. And I just think stuff like that's so important. So right now, my December is pretty closed down to spending time with family. We'll go on a little trip around Christmas as a family, but leading up to December, November is going to be pretty busy. So we'll get some stuff knocked out in November and go from there. We have like we mentioned, the private money tank event just in a couple days from when this comes out. And then I have my 10-year wedding anniversary. So my wife and I are going to Jamaica for a few days. So
Hey, congrats.
make them on. So it's never been there. It's I love the kind of the lifestyle that the Jamaica represents and everything else. So looking forward to that. And then we have a business planning meeting the week after that in Buffalo, New York, up at the BYOB headquarters to start planning out 2025. And then of course Thanksgiving, and then so spend some time with family in December, and then January 1 comes around and right back to the to the hecticness of it all. But one thing I wanted to mention, Hannah, that you said before, about recapturing money, and it really requires discipline. Um, I'm a big believer that everything in life happens for a reason and happens at the right time. And so I look back to when I was in my 20s. I could have watched every 90-minute video and read every book, and I think I would have probably failed at infinite banking because at that time in my life, I did
We're
not have
ready.
structure. I didn't have a lot. So, I give you all so much credit in the world being in your early 20s to be able to actually do this, run the businesses, everything you're doing, but also be a disciplined, honest banker, as we call it, and be smart with your money. Because I'll be honest with you, I would not have been that way in my 20s. And that's just because of, the lifestyle that I had. But so I think it's awesome. But, learning about this 4 years ago when I was in my late 30s, married, had a kid, like it was the perfect time for me. So anybody listening to this, like we talk about this with our team all the time. If this is not right for you right now, it's okay. Like stay around the campfire, as we call it. Continue to listen to podcasts, get the mindset right. And when you're ready in life, that'll be the time it's ready, you're ready to take action. Now, don't let that hold you back if you're actively trying to make change. Sometimes you got to force yourself to make that change and give yourself the push. Have us be the support for you, whatever the case might be. But it's okay if the timing's not right for you right now. But when the timing's right, be ready to jump on those opportunities and move forward because that's how success is created.
Yeah, because and now Stephen, because now you're taking back the time freedom because you have the mentality in your systems nailed down. And I want to ask you this because when you're talking with people, what is one of the biggest things that are holding them back from starting? Because I totally agree. Don't, if now is not the right time, don't start right now. It took my father 2 years to start this stuff when he first learned about it because he thought it was too good to be true. My mother, even after that, dad started his policy, and the only reason mom allowed dad to start it is because, hey, Brent, instead of you spending your money on stupid shit, you're going to go and force yourself to save inside of this policy.
Now that I know your parents, I can literally see that conversation happening right now, baby.
Right. And but then even after that, it took my mom 2 years to close out her 401ks because she's like, okay, I get this now. This is so much better than me put my money and storing it over here. But given, mom's an engineer, she's gotta make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed before she goes into something head first. And then once she's there, I mean, she's all in. But when
Yeah,
you're
well, to your question though, I mean that is, a big part of when people, are looking at this for the first time. A lot of it does have to do with kind of their experience with money in the past and their experience with investing in the past, but not always, because we do talk with a lot of very, very successful business owners, very, very successful real estate investors, people that have millions and millions and millions of dollars and are very good with money that still are very hesitant when they see the infinite banking concept, because I think it does go back to what we started with. It's too good to be true idea because it's something that they've never seen before. But those are my favorites because I think that there is something in the mind that does shift. And that's why when you watch the 90-minute video, we always open up with that backwards bicycle video. It's such a great example and how the mind operates because the mind is such a powerful thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean the background because we also have people that have no experience in business that are just trying to get out of the rat race, maybe have some debt, and they still are hesitant with that mindset. Some people see it one time and read the book one time and it clicks. And so there's no rhyme or reason, I think, why people maybe either don't do this. I think it's more of a timing thing for most people and being around that. But it's like everything in life. We have to hear it. Most people have to hear things several times, repetition. And that's why I love you do this podcast. I love that the internet exists this day and age
yeah.
because there's so many ways to go out there and get the education. I mean, when I first started getting into financial education, like I mentioned, we were traveling the country doing this stuff, teaching it in hotel ballrooms all across the country, which by the way, I loved because I grew up in a little small country town in Southwest Virginia where people did not lock their doors. My friends would come in and out of our house 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Same thing with them. Like we lived in a very small little community, and I still have friends that I grew up with that have never left that town. I
Yeah.
have friends that grew up in that town that have never even, they maybe come to Florida once in their life, or like South Carolina, maybe once every few years, but they just don't go anywhere, travel, which is fine, nothing wrong with it. But growing up in that little small town, I mean, we didn't talk about money and investing and being a millionaire and things like that. It was going in the woods and fishing and things. So like I had a big mindset change when I had to start learning about, but more important than that, like when I was traveling, just how cool it was, like being able to experience, California and Montana and Las Vegas. It was just so cool. But anyways, so regardless of where you come from though, or what that background, what your mindset, where you are today, one of the things that I do love about infinite banking is there's almost a solution for everybody. You could be $50,000 in debt. We'll create a debt blaster program for you to show you how to pay that debt off quicker using the policy. But not only that, like maybe you don't believe us yet, you haven't completely bought into it. We will show you on paper, mathematically, how paying off the debt alone versus paying off the debt with a policy, how much more beneficial it is by making that one change. And what's that change? Where the money goes first,
Yep.
into a policy. And that one thing right there is what made me buy into all this. Because remember, I was talking about it, a little skeptical, gimmicky, all the rest of it.
Mhm.
When I figured out that there's nothing more to this than making one change, where the money goes first and how banks operate. So instead of giving all my money into somebody else's bank and having them benefit and make them very successful from that, I make one change and put the money into my banking system instead. The difference that makes in your financial life, not only today, but for retirement and then for generations to come, because it is a whole life policy, that was mind blowing to me. Now it's called the infinite banking concept because once the money's in your banking system, there's an infinite way to use it.
Yeah.
Paying off debt, investing, buying cars, investing in your own business and businesses, financing major purchases, things like that. Like it's infinite. That's the cool thing about it. But at the end of the day, it's the one thing where the money goes first. And if you can simply kind of start to understand that, I truly believe the rest of it will come. So if I had to give one piece of advice to somebody that's skeptical or maybe doesn't know if it's right for them yet, just learn how banks operate, understand how much interest gets bled out of your financial life over the course of a lifetime, and understand making that one change, what that looks like for you. And this is all stuff we can do for you to show you. And if you can understand that one concept, I think the rest of those pieces will fall into place long term.
Yeah, I would even argue too that in infinite, it even correlates to the infinite interest that we can earn on the money because of the uninterrupted compounding that comes from it. So, and it takes it back just to what Nelson Nash says. And reminder, y'all, if you have not read Becoming Your Own Banker in some time, I would encourage you to do it. Here soon, I'm going to be going over the equipment financing example in Nelson's book. So stay tuned here in the next few weeks. I'll have that episode launched. But Nelson talks about how what you're doing in your financial life is compared to what everybody else is doing. And if you can take back control of the banking function, how you finance the things that you're buying in life, you already outbeat 95% of the population. So you're always going to be farther ahead. And, this is why the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays, why they all were able to grow massive generational wealth, keep the money in the family, because they understood how money actually works. So, Stephen,
That's a good point, Hannah. Let me say one more thing on that, because that is something that now that you're saying it, I do get that a lot from clients and people that are just getting started, is they want to learn the concept, obviously, but they want to almost learn too much all at one time.
I get
So they
it.
start saying, okay, well, if I get the policy, like, do I need to also then have the trust that owns it and have the trust set up? And then do I need to know immediately like what I'm going to do with the policy and how's it going to operate? And what am I going to do in 2 years from now? What's it going to look like in 10 years from now? And so it's like one of those things where it's like too much information all at once where it becomes overwhelming. And instead of taking action and getting started, it hinders them because it's information overload. So we do hear that a lot. And so the beautiful thing about what we do, because it is a whole life policy, given it's specially designed and engineered to operate as a banking system for the infinite banking concept. But that's what we do all day, every day, is make sure that's perfect for your situation. But at the end of the day, it's just a whole life insurance policy. And the cool thing with the whole life insurance policy is it's flexible. We can make changes to it. We can worry about what that stuff looks like later on. The important part is get that thing set up now while you can. Tomorrow's not promised. I was just in Tampa, Florida at a mastermind called Family Mastermind. And it's called Family Mastermind because the people in this mastermind become family. I've been going to it for a couple of years now, and I've become great friends. I've developed great relationships with the people that attend. So we get together twice a year in person. We do little mini masterminds throughout the year. We do Zooms throughout the year. So you get to see these people over and over. They become family. And one of the family mastermind members that I was just hanging out with a few weeks ago in Tampa, we were having drinks, we were having dinner, we were sitting together during the day, listening to speakers and talking. This young lady was standing on the street corner this last weekend, had just gotten done with dinner, was sitting there just chatting with somebody. A drunk driver, she still doesn't know 100% what happened. She thinks a drunk driver was coming down the road, swerved on the sidewalk, and hit her. And she is lucky to be alive right now.
Oh my
She
God.
posted a couple pictures. I just found out this happened last night. So she posted a couple pictures um, in the private Facebook group of herself in the hospital. And I can't believe she's alive. She had brain bleeds. She was completely out of it for like a while, like had no idea what happened. Broke all kinds of bones and ribs, internal bleeding. Um, they said they were sending her home hopefully in the next couple weeks, but she did go from the trauma unit into ICU now, which is a little bit better. So it looks like she's going to be okay. But it's like it makes you think, like this young, healthy, beautiful woman, successful, has a real estate investing business, just out to dinner, having a good time, just gets hit out of nowhere. Like we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah.
And so if we can prepare ourselves to do everything we can today, where what if that happens? Why would you not do that today?
I know.
Right. And so getting started with something small is better than waiting for it to be big, where maybe it never happens.
Yep.
And that's advice not only for whole life because of the medical and everything that's involved. That's like that in everything in life, whether it's starting a business, whether it's investing, whether it's proposing to your girlfriend to make her your fiance, because whatever it is, like do stuff, like make life happen. And I think it'll be that much better. And so when we look at, the overall picture of all of that, you know, understand it to a point where you're comfortable enough to know that the people that are telling you to do things, you can trust them. They're going to guide you in the right direction because they have the right heart. And we talked about this in Nashville, Hannah, or I spoke about it at least from the front of the stage. What we've been able to build with the Money Multiplier, the team that we have with you and Brent and your mom, Terry, and Chris Noggle and the BYOB team, what we've been able to build are the right people at the right time to impact and help as many people. And every single person on our team has the heart and has the motivation behind them, where we will 100% of the time do the right thing for the client. And this day and age that we live in 2024, with the election today and the divisiveness in this country and potential civil war and the rest of it, it just makes me want to throw up. And it's just because life is too fragile and short and beautiful for things like that to happen. And so I just love the team that we've built, because our clients know that when they come to us, they're going to get 100% the right guidance, the right, I don't know what to call it, the right heart behind it. Does that make sense, Anna?
I know, I know. And it's important to have that strong community behind you. So I 100% agree. I just think
It's attraction, it's the law of attraction, right? And then
it
we bring
is.
clients and you
And,
see
and I,
that.
I Well, I would like to even just put out a big PSA that y'all, we need your help. There are so many people here in the United States and Canada that need our help, and they need our help whether they understand it or realize it right now or they don't, because we're just in these shackles of this conventional thinking, conventional way of life that actually, Stephen, I kind of appreciate that you said that hey, people's biggest thing that's holding them back is themselves, right? It's their mindset or, their nervousness, or they're scared to take that leap into something new. And I think it's very important that, well, hey, what's the worst thing that could ever happen? You know what I asked myself? This is what my mother told me, because she used to be a nuclear engineer. She says, Hannah, we're not building nuclear bombs and nobody's going to die. So am I going to die if I go do this? No. So let's go and take the leap of faith.
Yeah, it used to be one of my favorite things in any business decision we make. We're like, listen, we're not splitting atoms here. I'm not Elon Musk building rockets to Mars. This is a simple business decision. And to that point, like you do have, anything you do in life, you have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run. But then once you're up and running, you can take out and sprint and do marathons and everything else. But you have to take that first little step of sitting up and crawling along. And then whatever that blossoms into is a beautiful thing. But you have to take that first action.
But all I know is I'm going to earn as I learn. That's what I tell myself.
100 billion% right there. That's it.
All right, Stephen, I want you to come on here soon. We should do some more episodes together. Y'all go follow Stephen on his Facebook, his Instagram. He's always on Chris Nagel's channels as well. I mean, Stephen, if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so just like you said on Facebook, Stephen Nagy. I don't do a lot of the forward facing like marketing, but I have some fun, just family stuff more or less, things like that. I'm usually letting Chris be the face of a lot of this, and you, Hannah, you guys do an incredible job with all of it. A lot of times I'm more behind the scenes, but I do have a lot that I feel like is valuable to share. So we do shows, webinars each week, so you can go to my Facebook. We advertise. If you have Linktree, you guys know that Linktree thing. If you do Linktree/BYOBTV, it has a list of all of our weekly webinars. Again, they're all free. Our motto is we give all of our best stuff away for free. The more we give, the more we'll get in the long run. So this is not a get rich quick thing. This is not let's make a bunch of money today. This is how many lives can we impact today? And let's see what that looks like financially over the next 10, 15, 20 years of our lives. Luckily, again, I'm not in my 20s anymore, but 41 years old. I'm feeling like I'm in my 20s. I'm feeling great. So ready to build for many, 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 many more years to come. And Hannah, I know you're a very young lady and you have the same mindset. So we're here for you guys, but at the Chris Nagel, at Private Money Club on YouTube. And if anybody ever needs anything, I truly am here to help and support and chat anytime.
Yep. And just so y'all know too, Stephen is really my right hand when it comes to the agent trainings and educating our team every single week and every single month, and also even helping me on some of my JV relationships. And, it's important. Again, as I get older, I've noticed that, this is not just about selling. I don't think any business should just be around selling. It should really be the relationships business. I even learned that in the chiropractic days when I was working at one of Dad's offices in Olathe, Kansas. It's all about the relationships that you create along the way, because it's not about the end destination. It's about the journey and all the fun you're going to have throughout the way. So thank you all for
I
being.
was going to say, if you want to go back and just kind of get some laughs on the progression, was go back to 2020 and watch some of our content, and you'll totally feel like my background's changing. We're trying to figure out, like, I had at one point I had like one of those big, humongous, like lit up backdrops behind me, and then I brought a surfboard in, and then I brought a lobster in. The lobster was popular for a while, and then moved and just had more of a plain background. But you can see Chris's changes over the years and your changes. Like, again, you got to just start, and we'll figure out the rest of it later on. But get started with it, and that's my part, in my opinion, the most important part about all this. I mean, even my eyes today, like, I don't do a lot of these podcasts and things like that. So like you'll see like Hannah's like perfectly looking at the camera when she's talking, and you guys are making eye contact. I'm like looking all over it. So it's okay though, it's okay though, right? I don't mind. So
That's it. That's it. Because we're all human and we're just one big happy family over here is what I think about. So thank you, y'all. Thanks for being here for another episode. I will be back next week. Good luck this week. We're all here in this together. Reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you got topics that y'all want me to talk about, reach out to me through email. Hannah spelled the same ways, forwards and backwards, hannah@themoneymultiplier.com. And go and explore some of the resources on our website, themoneymultiplier.com. I'll catch everybody next week. See y'all soon.